Police began the hunt for the 26-year-old after the bodies of the wife and two daughters of the BBC sports commentator were found in Hertfordshire. The emergency services were called to a house in Ashton Close, Bushey, shortly before 7 o'clock yesterday evening.
Under the calm surface of suburban life, the Hunt family appeared to embody normalcy, respected, loving, and deeply rooted in their community. But was everything really as perfect as it seemed? Could something so dark, so dangerous be brewing behind closed doors? On a quiet July evening, the lives of Carol Hunt and her two daughters, Louise and Hannah, would be brutally cut short. The discovery of their bodies left the nation reeling, shaking not just their community but the entire country. How could someone so young, so seemingly ordinary, carry out such calculated violence? At the heart of this tragedy was 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, a former soldier with a troubled past and an intimate connection to one of the victims. As investigators dug deeper, what they uncovered would reveal a chilling pattern of obsession and mental deterioration. But what led this man, who once served his country, down such a dark path? What was behind the premeditated violence, and how had it remained hidden for so long? Born on April 5, 1998 in Enfield, North London, Kyle Clifford's life was marked by a series of personal struggles. He joined the Queen's Dragoon Guards in 2019, but his military service was far from smooth. Former colleagues described him as immature and defiant, and by 2022, he left the army. So, what was next for Clifford? Could the struggles he faced as a civilian explain his downward spiral? After bouncing between low-wage jobs, Clifford found himself working as a security guard, a job that brought routine but little purpose to his life. But his background carried even darker undertones. His older brother, Bradley Clifford, had been convicted of a deadly road rage attack in 2017, casting a long shadow over the family. But did Kyle's struggles go deeper than just his family's criminal history? Despite his inner turmoil, Clifford blended into his North London neighborhood, keeping to himself. But how much of his life remained hidden from the people around him? Clifford had been in a relationship with Louise Hunt, but it ended just before the murders. Could the breakup have been the tipping point for someone already emotionally unstable? What followed was a chilling transformation. Clifford, already struggling with his inner demons, began plotting. Was the motive rooted in vengeance? The night of July 9, 2024, marked the beginning of unspeakable violence in the town of Bushey, Hertfordshire. Carol Hunt, 61, and her daughters Louise, 25, and Hannah, 28, were all killed in a deliberate and horrifying attack. Clifford, under the guise of returning Louise's belongings, entered the home. But what led to his brutal actions? According to court testimony and forensic reports, Clifford first attacked Carol, then moved on to Louise. He bound her with duct tape, sexually assaulted her, and killed her with a crossbow. When Hannah returned home, she too was targeted. Critically injured, she managed to send a final message to her partner, an act of bravery that alerted emergency responders. But despite their efforts, Hannah died shortly after their arrival. Clifford fled the scene and vanished into the night, spending hours hidden among the graves of a nearby cemetery. The next day, police tracked him down. He had attempted to take his own life with the same crossbow he used to kill his victims. Though he survived, the damage was done. Clifford was permanently paralyzed from the waist down. Was this an attempt at escaping the inevitable consequences of his actions? Or was it a final act of self-pity? The investigation, spearheaded by the Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, and Cambridgeshire Major Crime Unit, confirmed that the attack was meticulously premeditated. Clifford had purchased weapons, tracked the family's movements, and waited for the moment when they would all be at home. So, was this a crime of passion, or was it something far more calculated? This was no momentary loss of control. It was a cold, calculated act of revenge. On September 17, 2024, Clifford was formally charged with 3 counts of murder, false imprisonment, and possession of offensive weapons. The charges were later expanded to include rape after further forensic analysis. At first, Clifford denied the charges, claiming the sexual encounter with Louise was consensual. But the evidence told a different story. In January 2025, he changed his plea, admitting to all charges except rape. A jury later found him guilty of that charge as well. What drove Clifford to admit his guilt after initially denying it? Was it the weight of the evidence or the realization that no lie could erase his actions? Clifford was sentenced on March 11, 2025, to a whole life order, meaning no possibility of parole. Additional sentences included 20 years for rape, 8 years for false imprisonment, and concurrent terms for weapons charges. But where was Clifford during the emotional victim impact statements? He refused to appear in court, missing the heartfelt words delivered by John Hunt, the surviving father, and his daughter Amy. Was his absence a final insult in a case already steeped in tragedy? How could someone so deeply involved in the pain of others choose not to face the consequences of their actions? To avoid sensationalism, early phrases like a terrifying collapse and evil hiding in plain sight were later softened in official accounts. The goal wasn't to dramatize the story, but rather to present the truth. What could the media do to balance the need for engagement with the responsibility of accurate reporting? Even after the legal chapter was closed, the emotional impact lingered. John Hunt, a respected BBC racing commentator, and his daughter Amy, now the only surviving members of their once vibrant family, stood before the world not just as victims, but as voices for Carol, Louise, and Hannah. How had their grief shaped their fight for justice? John credits his daughter Hannah's final desperate message with saving his life. He believes that had she not managed to send that message, he could have been the next target. But as the legal proceedings came to a close, deeper questions remained. How could the system fail to recognize the signs of domestic violence and mental health struggles until it was too late? How had Clifford been able to obtain a deadly crossbow without raising legal concerns? And more importantly, what changes need to be made to prevent future tragedies? This case brought to light several gaps in the system. There was no prior police involvement, despite warning signs that were now painfully clear. Clifford had legally obtained weapons capable of mass lethality, and perhaps most disturbingly, his background as a veteran came with no safety net, no mental health follow-up, no check-ins, no protection. What more could be done to ensure that those who serve in the military are not left to fight their own battles alone when they return to civilian life? As the Hunt family continues to grieve, their strength and resilience have inspired national reflection. Carol, Louise, and Hannah are remembered not just for how they died, but for their courage in the face of unimaginable violence. Their story is not one of sensationalism, but of tragedy, loss, and the urgent need for reform. The court may have reached its verdict, but the deeper questions linger. How do we identify the signs of domestic violence before it's too late? And, more importantly, what steps are we taking to prevent the next tragedy?